أيا طالب العلم قم لا تنم فإن الزمان أيا طالب العلم قم لا تنم فإن الزمان انقضى وانصرم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. All praise and thanks belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord, creator and sustainer of the heavens and the earth. We place our choicest greetings and blessings upon the most beloved of Allah's creation, the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, upon his family members, upon his companions, and upon all of those who follow his blessed way of life until the end of times. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us from them. Ameen. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. I welcome each and every one of you back to our reading of the text, منظومة المفطرات المعاصرة, the poem, the didactic poem that deals with the modern nullifiers. So now the author rahimahullah ta'ala continues and he says, he goes to the next mas'ala. Inshallah. He says, بخاخ ربو والدخان أكمل. The Nazim says, بخاخ ربو, we've discussed بخاخ ربو. That's done. والدخان أكمل, all types of smoking, مداعة وشيشة معسلة. Now he's speaking about smoking cigarettes, smoking vapes, smoking hookahs. All of these things break the fast. We're not speaking about normal smoke. We're not speaking about bukhur smoke. We're speaking about smoking cigarettes, smoking shisha, smoking vapes, and all of these things. These things, basically, this is a matter of agreement among contemporary scholars. Everyone agrees that this is a nullifier of fasting, because they say, if you do a small experiment, and you can just Google this as well. They say if you keep a cigarette, all right, against a piece of cloth, you will see that cloth becomes yellow, because the makeup of a cigarette, it is made up of various components, and those things are considered as ayn, and that going into your body thus nullifies your fast. And that's why even the Arabs, when they speak about smoking, they call it shurbud dukhan. It's like considered like drinking, because it's a nullifier of fasting. And this is in the Al-Mawsu'at al-Fiqhiyyah al-Kuwaitiyah, in the Encyclopedia of Fiqh that was produced in Kuwait. It says, اتفق الفقهاء, the scholars have unanimously agreed, على أن شرب الدخان, that's smoking, المعروف, that's known today, أثناء الصوم, whilst fasting, يفسد الصيام, it nullifies the fast. لأنه من المفطرات, because it is among those things that nullify the fast. And the scholars say, the Shafi'iyya, many of the Shafi'i scholars said, لأنه لكثافة تنفصل منه عين, because of the thickness of the type of smoke that you inhale, there's an ayn that is produced from that goes down. And any ayn that enters through manfad maftuh and ends up in the jawf breaks the fast. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. The third mas'ala, the author rahimahullah ta'ala. So remember what I've done when I'm discussing these issues with you, I'm categorizing things together. So I'm categorizing all those things together that enters into the jawf through one of the passages on the face. And then I'm going to discuss all those things that nullify your fast with regards to what enters a bodily passage through the skin. All of those things that enter the body through the urinary tract, through the rectum, the backside. All those things, I'll cluster it together. The author, what he has clustered it in a way based upon the Shafi madhab. So he mentions those things that break your fast according to the Shafi madhab, where there's no difference of opinion. So the next masala that I'm going to discuss is the minzar. So he says, kadat tahamilu. He says, similarly, tahamil, suppositories, whether it is rectal suppositories or is suppositories that a female put in her vaginal area, all of that break the fast. I'm not going to discuss that now. I'm going to discuss that later. Wa minzarum, and scopes. And obviously there are different types of scopes. He says, the first scope that I will discuss, the endoscope, is a medical device that is inserted through the mouth into the pharynx and then the esophagus, and it finally reaches the stomach. It is used for imaging. They want to see what's happening in the abdominal area, or to extract a small sample for examination. This is called an endoscopy. The procedure is called an endoscopy. The device is called an endoscope. Does this break the fast? Yes or no? That's the next mas'ala. So number one, what the fuqaha, the contemporary fuqaha, what they do is, when looking at a mas'ala like this, they say, is there anything in our turath, in our fiqh turath, in our traditional fiqh that is similar to this? And then we make takhrij upon that mas'ala. So they say there are two issues that the fuqaha, the early fuqaha discussed. They say, mas'alatu ibtila'il hasad wan nawa. Swallowing stones and seeds or pits, وَمَا لَا يَنْتَفِعُ بِهِ الْبَدَنِ. Swallowing anything that does not give nutritious value to the body. Can you see where the fuqaha are going with this already? Why would they look at that mas'ala? Swallowing something like a stone or a pit or a seed that has no nutrition, that the body doesn't benefit from. What do you think is the comparison between this and the endoscope? The endoscope. Who can tell us, inshallah? Because they argue that the endoscope is not, does it carry benefit? Is it nourishing your body? It's not nourishing your body. It's not nourishing your body. It doesn't give any nourishment. So it is not akal, it is not shurb, it is not fi ma'nahuma haqiqatan aw suratan. So it's not considered. So some scholars will say it doesn't break your fast based upon that. A second takhrij that they do, a takyif that they do, they say the early fuqaha discuss the mas'ala of idkhalu khayt ila al-ma'ida, placing a string down to your abdominal area, and the other part of the string is fil kharij, it's outside of your body. So a portion of it is in the body and the other one is out of. Subhanallah, look at the fuqaha, how they would discuss these masail, not knowing in the future similar things would pop up, and this is how they make takyif. So what did the classical scholars state when discussing these issues? The classical scholars, the Malikis, the Shafi'is, and the Hanbalis stated that something that goes down that is not of a nutritious nature breaks the fast. This is the view of the majority of the scholars. However, Hanafis stated it doesn't break the fast. Some Malikis, and Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala. And let's discuss their views, inshallah. Why did the Hanafi state? So number one, the majority of the scholars said, let's go through the evidences of the majority of the scholars. So they said anything that goes down through a manfadh maftuh, an open passage, natural passage, and it ends up in the jawf, whether it is nutritious or not, whether it is a piece of stone, a piece of wood, a seed, anything, it breaks the fast. What are some of the evidences? Number one, the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ prohibited the use of kuhl. The hadith where the Prophet prohibited the use of kuhl, of antimony. And this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ prohibited the use of antimony for the fasting person. He said, لِيَتَّقِهِ الصَّائِمِ. The fasting person should avoid it. Why would they say this? They say this because kuhl, antimony, reaches the jawf, the bodily cavity. And kuhl is of such a nature that the body doesn't gain any nutrients from it. So based upon this, they argue that it is not a condition for something that ends up in the bodily cavity, the jawf, that it be of benefit to the body. So whether it benefits the body or not, it doesn't really matter. It's not a condition. And thus anything that enters the body, anything that enters the body fulfilling the conditions through a manfadh maftuh and it ends up in the jawf, whether it benefits the body from a nutrition perspective or not, will nullify the fast. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. And this argument was primarily used by the Hanbali school. We know, according to the majority of the scholars, if you use kuhal, even if you can taste it in your throat, it doesn't break your fast. This is an argument the early Hanbalis would use. This is the classical mas'ala. In something entering into your body that's of a non-nutritious nature, does it break your fast? Yes or no? Through the mouth. So we first discuss the classical mas'ala and then we apply that to the contemporary issue of an endoscope. Another argument that they use is, they use the athar of Abdullah bin Abbas, where he said, إِنَّمَا الْفِطْرُ مِمَّا دَخَلْ وَلَيْسَ مِمَّا خَرَجْ. Fasting breaks based upon something that enters the body and not something that leaves the body. And so thus, anything that enters the jawf, بغض النظر عن طبيعة هذا الواصل, not looking at the nature of the thing that enters, anything that enters, whether the body benefits from it or not, will then break the fast. That's the view of the majority of the scholars. The Hanafis, they will agree with the first takif. They will agree perhaps with the issue of something that enters into the body like a stone or a seed that's of a non-nutritious nature. They will agree with that takif. They will say, yes, we agree that it breaks the fast. However, the second takif, the takif of where a piece of string goes down your throat into your abdominal area and the other part is outside of your mouth. They say, if we accept this takif, then the fast is not broken. Why? Because they make it a condition that anything that enters into the abdominal area should remain there. It should remain there. And the string, a part of it being in your abdominal area and the part of it being outside, is not totally in your abdominal area. Some Malikis and Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, their argument is, if anything is of a non-nutritious nature, then it doesn't break the fast, even if it goes down. If anything is of a non-nutritious nature, then it doesn't break your fast. So the Hanafis, their condition is, it should be something that remains in the abdominal area. And the Malikis say it should be something that is nutritious. The majority of the scholars state, whether a portion of it's in your body and the other portion is outside, whether it is nutritious or not, the moment it enters through a manfadh maftuh and it lands up in the jawf, it breaks your fast. And Ibn Rushd rahimahullah ta'ala says in his magnum opus Bidayatul Mujtahid, he said, وَالسَّبَبُ اخْتِلَافِهِمْ, the reason why the scholars differed on this issue, في هذا هو قياس المغذي على غير المغذي. The reason why they differed is based upon في هذه, in this issue is in relation to making qiyas of a nutritious thing upon a non-nutritious thing. وَذَلِكَ أَنَّ الْمَنْطُوقِ بِهِ إِنَّمَا هُوَ الْمُغَذِّي. That which is mantuq, that which is mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah. What does the Quran and Sunnah prohibit you from? Eating and drinking. What is eating and drinking? It offers the body nutrition. وَالْمُغَذِّي. فَمَنْ رَأَى, whoever holds the view, أَنَّ الْمَقْصُودِ بِصَوْمٍ, that the objective of fasting, مَعْنًا مَعْقُولٌ, it is something which can be rationalized. Any person who views that the aim of fasting, the objective of fasting, is something which is ma'qul. There's a illah that's ma'qula, it's rational. Lam yulhiq al-mughaddi bighayr al-mughaddi. You will not make qiyas of a non-nutritious thing upon a nutritious thing. If you consider the meaning of fasting to be something which can be rationalized, you will not make qiyas, because you will say the Sharia has come to prohibit placing something into your abdominal area that benefits the body. Thus, if something enters that region and it doesn't benefit the body, then it doesn't break your fast. وَمَنْ رَآ أَنَّهَا عِبَادَةٌ غَيْرُ مَعْقُولَةٌ. But those scholars who view fasting as an act of worship, the reasoning behind it we cannot rationalize. We cannot see if there's an illa ma'kula. We call it ta'abbudi. وَأَنَّ الْمَقْصُودِ مِنَّا إِنَّمَا هُوَ الْإِمْسَاكُ. And we view fasting to be only refraining عَمَّا يَرِدُ الْجَوْفِ سَوَّ بَيْنَ الْمُغَذِّي وَغَيْرِ الْمُغَذِّي. They will make qiyas between a nutritious thing and a non-nutritious thing. Is everybody still with me?
Yes, Maulana.
Okay. And these scholars who state, like Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah and the Malikiyah, who state that it needs to be of a nutritious nature to break your fast, they say that the hadith of the kuhl is number one, weak. The hadith is weak, so we cannot use it as an evidence. Number two, they say Allah and the Prophet both have prohibited us from eating and drinking, akal and shurb. Right? Allah has prohibited us, and the nature of eating and drinking is that which offers nutrition to the body. It offers nutrition to the body. Anything that enters the body and is not of a nutritious nature does not break the fast. So the majority of the scholars state that the scope ending, the endoscope, when it enters into your jawf, it breaks your fast, because we will consider this as eating and drinking, because it enters through a manfad maftuh and it ends up in the jawf. But those scholars who state it doesn't break the fast, they say, well, we are debating the issue whether a non-nutritious thing ending up in your abdomen, is it eating and drinking? That's the issue. So you can't really use that as an argument. Also, the argument that fasting means restraint, and someone who allows an endoscope to enter into his jawf has not done imsak, has not refrained. They say again, imsak from what? Isn't the intention imsak from food and drinks? So they don't accept that argument as well. And also they say that athar of Abdullah bin Abbas, number one, besides the fact that there's it's debatable with regards to its authenticity, they also say when the Sharia, when Abdullah bin Abbas says something like that, al-fitr mimma dakhal, that the fast breaks based on something that enters the body, did he not intend that which normally enters the body, such as eating and drinking? Did Abdullah bin Abbas mean a stone that enters your body? Or you swallow a piece of paper? And they say, al-hukmu lil-ghalib. We give ruling based upon that which is common. La hukma, there's no ruling lin-nadir for that which is uncommon. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Okay. So now that's the classical difference of opinion. Now we go to the contemporary issue. So does the endoscope then break the fast? Based upon that takhrij, this mas'ala, this taklif that we gave you, majority of the classical scholars, if they were asked, does an endoscope break your fast, they would say yes. And that minority, if they were asked if the endoscope existed at the time, they would have said, no, it doesn't break your fast. So from among the contemporary scholars, the majority of the contemporary scholars state anything that enters the jawf through a passage that is natural, that is open, whether nutritious or not, whether it remains in the body or not, breaks the fast. Remember the Hanafis, they say the thing must remain in your body. And the nature of a scope is that it doesn't remain in your body. They put it into your body and then they take it out. According to Ibn Taymiyyah and some Maliki scholars, they say the thing needs to be nutritious. And the endoscope is not, it doesn't offer the body nutrition. So according to the majority of contemporary ulama today, they will say anything that enters through a manfad maftuh and it enters the jawf, nutritious or not, whether it remains in the jawf or not, it breaks the fast. The second opinion is that it doesn't break the fast, and that's the opinion of Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah, a major Saudi scholar. It's the view of the late Shaykh Yusuf al-Qaradawi. This is the view of the Majma al-Fiqh al-Islami, of the Fiqh Council based in Jeddah. They state that it does not break the fast. The use of the insertion of the endoscope doesn't break the fast because it's not eating and drinking and it doesn't benefit the body. It's not eating and drinking. And they say if you look at from a Lughawi perspective, the scholars of Lugha, if you look at any classical dictionary, when you check the words akala ya'kulu, they connect it to a muta'alliq, and that is mat'um, something that could potentially be consumed. They don't say akala al-hasat, he ate a stone. They won't use it like that. So they say from a Lughawi perspective, this is not eating and drinking. So it cannot be included in among the nullifiers of fasting. Also, the asl is that your fast is valid unless there's strong evidence to suggest otherwise. And here we don't have, and thus your fast is valid. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Some more arguments that they use. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah mentions this. He said, أن الله ورسوله إنما جعل الطعام والشراب مفطرا. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the messenger prohibit food and drinks? Why did they consider these things to be a nullifier fasting? لِعِلَّةِ التَّقَوِّ وَالتَّغَذِّي. Because it offers the body strength and nutrition. لا لمجرد كونه واصلا إلى الجو. Not merely because it reached the abdominal area. He says, الصائم نهي عن الأكل والشرب. The fasting person is prohibited from eating and drinking لأن ذلك سبب التقوي. Because it gives your body nourishment and strength. فَتَرْكُ الْأَكْلِ وَالشُّرْبِ الَّذِي يُولِدْ. He says, لأن ذلك سبب التقوي. He says, فَتَرْكُ الْأَكْلِ وَالشُّرْبِ. So eating and drinking, leaving off eating and drinking, الَّذِي يُوَلِّدْ الدَّمَ الْكَثِيرِ, that produces more blood, الَّذِي يَجْرِي فِيهِ شَيْطَان, which causes shaitan to flow in your blood. إِنَّمَا يَتَوَلَّدْ مِنَ الْغَذَاءِ. The blood increases, and the thickness of the blood only increases through nutrition in the body. لا أن حقن ولا كحل. He says, a suppository doesn't provide this. كحل doesn't provide this. وإذا ثبت أن هذه هي العلة فهي متفية فيما يدخل إلى المعدة مما لا يغذي. He says, thus, if this is the illah, that eating and drinking provides nutrition, which then causes the blood to become thick, which causes shaitan to flow in the blood. If this is not applicable to anything else, if this illah is not found, then we cannot include anything that doesn't provide nutrition to the body as a nullifier fasting. And so this is what Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said about 700-800 years ago. So he's of the opinion, if you were to ask Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah today, does it endoscope break your fast? He would say no. That's the difference of opinion. However, scholars agree that if an endoscope is placed into the abdominal area and it is accompanied by any gel or liquid, then all scholars agree it will break your fast. Not because of the endoscope itself, but because of the gel that is applied to it. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Khair, inshallah. Now we go to the next discussion. So we said the nullifiers of fasting is either ma yadkhul al-jisma, that which enters the body. Abra manafid al-wajh, that which enters the body through one of the passages on the face. Ma yadkhul al-jisma, that which enters the body, abra al-jihaz al-tanasuli wa-sharj, that which enters the body through the reproductive system, male or female, and through the rectum of the male and female. Ma yadkhul al-jisma, that which enters the body, abra al-jild, through the skin, and ma yakhruj min al-jism, that which exits the body. So those four categories, all the contemporary nullifiers go back to those four things. All the contemporary things that could possibly break your fast go back to those four things. So I've divided my lesson based on that breakdown. So now we go to ma yadkhul al-jisma, that which enters the body, abra al-jihaz al-tanasuli wa sharj, that which enters the body through the reproductive system of the male or female and through the rectum of the male and female. And where does the author mention that? He mentions it in the second line of the poem. He says, بَخَاخُ رَبٍّ وَالدُّخَانُ أَكْمَلُ مَدَاعَةٌ وَشِيشَةٌ مُعَسِّلَةٌ كَذَا التَّحَامِيلِ. Tahamil, suppository. There are two types of suppositories. There's vaginal suppositories where a female places something inside of her, and then there's something called rectal suppositories where males and females place something in the rectum, and then you get enemas as well, which is the liquid. ومنظار, scopes, there's different types of scopes. وصل بفمه, through his mouth, which we've discussed now. ودبر أو القبل, and you get scopes that enter into the rectum and the qubul as well. والفطر واقع بفحص المهبلي, and the fast is also broken through a vaginal inspection. So up until here, we will, inshallah ta'ala, we will do this next discussion. So in the poem now, the Nadhim rahimahullah ta'ala wa hafidhahu now discusses those things that enter in through the reproductive system of the female, the urinary system or passage of the male, and the rectum of both male and female. That breaks the fast. These things break the fast. In the Shafi madhab, bila khilaf wala tafsil. What will we discuss here? There are three categories of things that we will be discussing here, inshallah. We'll discuss ما يدخل عبر الجهاز التناسلي للمرأة, that which enters through the female reproductive system. Under that, we will discuss vaginal suppositories. In Arabic, we call them tahamil. In the book, you can see it on the screen, tahamil. We will discuss vaginal douche, which is a type of liquid that women place in the vaginal area. We will discuss colposcopy, and we will discuss pelvic and bimanual exams, which is basically an exam where a doctor will place his or her fingers inside the vagina of the female due to some medical reason. Then we will discuss that which breaks the fast through something that enters through al-jihaz al-bawli, through the urinary system, such as a cystoscopy, a uteroscopy, the use of urinary catheters, bladder irrigation, or the entering of medication into the urinary system. And then the last one is ma yadkhul an tariq sarj, that which enters the body through the rectum, such as the use of enemas, which is a liquid that when you have when you need relief, bowel relief, rectal suppositories, tahamil, scopes that enter into the rectum, and a digital rectal examination where a doctor places his fingers inside your rectum. So all of those things will be discussed, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so how do the scholars, so the first thing that we discuss is something entering the body through the reproductive system of the female. When the early scholars, they would actually discuss this, right? They would discuss this. They make takyif of it in the following manner. They make takyif of it in the following manner. So example, the scholars make takyif of this in the following manner. There's two ways of looking at it. They say that which enters the farj, or the reproductive area of a female, can be looked at from two perspectives. This is what the classical fuqaha discussed. This is before all of these modern day things existed. They say it can either be idkhal al-jamid fil farj, entering something hard into the vaginal area, or entering a liquid. In Arabic, we say at-taqtir fil farj, entering a liquid, a medicinal liquid into the farj. So this is how the classical scholars would look at these things. This was obviously before they had pap smears, before they had all these various scopes. The classical scholars would discuss these things, the fuqaha. And subhanAllah, it shows you the intelligence of these people and how forward thinking they were. That they would discuss these matters in great detail, and later we would use these opinions and we would extrapolate modern day fatawa and modern day issues from it. And that's why in the classical works of fiqh, you will see that the ulama, when they discuss a mas'ala, they sometimes go into detail with regards to that mas'ala. And then later these masail that they have discussed has practical value. They have practical value. So the scholars, when they discuss something that enters into the reproductive system of the female, they say it could take two forms. Either it is something solid, and that's under the discussion that the classical fuqaha discussed as إدخال الجامد في الفرج, entering something which is hard or solid into the female private area, or التقطير في الفرج. التقطير في الفرج, which means inserting a liquid into the vaginal area of the female. So the scholars are basically in agreement that anything that enters into the farj, the classical scholars were basically in agreement that anything that enters into the farj breaks the fast. Right? So example, the early Hanafis, they stated that anyone who enters their fingers or a piece of stick into the vaginal area, sorry for my examples, that it'd be crude, but we need to discuss that. If they entered this into the vaginal area, it breaks the fast with two conditions. With two conditions, or with a condition. And that is, see something? They said it must be something that has liquid on it, such as water or gel. So if a lady placed something into a vaginal area, and if it's accompanied with gel or water, then it breaks the fast. The Malikis basically said they also have some conditions, but they said anything that enters into the vaginal area and reaches the jawf breaks the fast. The Shafi'is and the Hanbalis said the same. Anything that enters into that area, whether it is accompanied with gel, with water, or dry, it breaks the fast. There's a minority, however, some Malikis and some Hanbalis, they said if someone places their finger into the vaginal area, it doesn't break the fast. And their argument was the vaginal area is considered lahu hukm zahir. It's like considered the outer part of the body. It's like me putting my hand on my face. By me putting my hand on my face, it doesn't break my fast. So similarly, when you enter your fingers into that part of the body, it's considered the outer part of the body, and thus it doesn't break the fast. So that's an example of something solid. Okay. So something can either be a liquid, and that will include the insertion of any medicinal fluid into the reproductive system, or something solid. Solid is like what the different types of scopes or fingers. Based on that takyif that we made now, the scholars will obviously differ. The contemporary scholars will differ. Also, the scholars of the past discuss something called al-ghasūl al-mahbali, which in English we call today a vaginal douche. So vaginal douche basically is when they wash out the private area with a certain saline or like certain type of fluid, right? According to the majority of scholars, it breaks your fast. According to some Malikis and some Hanbalis, it doesn't break the fast. Why? Because the vaginal area to them, lahu hukm zahir. It's like considered the outer part of the body. It's not the inner of the body. So it doesn't break the fast. Also, another reason that they say is that it's medically proven and scientifically proven that the vaginal area is not connected to the jawf. It's not connected to the jawf. And they say the only thing that by unanimous agreement that breaks the fast, something that enters the vaginal area that breaks the fast is intimacy. Because this has been stated by the Quran and the Sunnah. Anything else does not break the fast. Anything else does not break the fast. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. So the classical fuqaha, the jumhur, will say anything that is of a liquid nature or anything of a solid nature will break the fast. Some Maliks and some Hanbalis will say it does not break the fast. Now we go to the contemporary issue. So now what do we do in the case of these modern day things that we have today? Vaginal suppositories. What is a vaginal suppository? A vaginal suppository is a solid oval shaped medication designed to dissolve inside of the vaginal canal. It delivers treatments for infections such as yeast infections, bacterial infections, etc. Colposcope. What's a colposcope? A colposcope is a medical instrument used to closely examine the cervix, the vagina, and the vulva. This procedure is often performed after a pap smear or when abnormal cellular changes are suspected. Manual vaginal examination. What's a manual vaginal examination? It is an examination where a medical professional places their fingers with a gloved finger into the vagina of the female due to medical concerns. A vaginal douche. We discussed what a vaginal douche is. It is the practice of washing or rinsing the inside of the vagina with water or some other mixture. So those are the different things that could possibly enter into the vaginal area of the female. So according to when it comes to the contemporary ulama, and this is based upon the classical issue that we discussed early on, majority of the scholars will state, majority of the contemporary ulama will state that it breaks your fast. So if a lady goes for a colposcope, if a lady goes for a vaginal suppository or a colposcopy or a manual vaginal examination or a vaginal douche, then according to the majority of the contemporary scholars, and that's the author of the book's opinion, it will break the fast. It will break the fast. And the evidence for this opinion is, they say, the generic nature of the statement of Abdullah bin Abbas, al-fitru mimma dakhal. The fast is broken by anything that enters into the jawf. And also they say the inside of the vaginal area is considered to be part of the jawf. Thus, anything that is solid or of a liquid nature that enters over there will break the fast. They also say that entering something into that place contradicts that which is demanded by fasting, which is imsak, which is refraining. The alternative opinion that states that anything that enters over there does not break the fast, and this opinion was held by Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah, the late Mufti of Saudi Arabia, Shaykh bin Baz, Shaykh Yusuf al-Qaradawi. This is the Lajna Da'ima's opinion of Saudi Arabia. It's the opinion of the Majma al-Fiqh al-Islami. All of them state that these things do not break your fast. And what are the evidences? The author of Abdullah bin Abbas is weak. Number two, supposing it is authentic, then this refers to, this author, the meaning thereof is that which normally enters, such as food and drink. Number two, it is proven through the study of anatomy that there's no connection between the uterus, the vaginal uterus, and the al-jihaz al-hadmi, the digestive system. There's no connection between the two. So it doesn't reach there, so it doesn't break the fast. It also is not considered eating and drinking, لا في معناهما ولا في حقيقة أو صورة. In form or in meaning, it's not considered eating and drinking. Does everyone understand that? So all of those things that I mentioned, vaginal suppositories, colposcopy, manual vaginal examination, vaginal douche, will not break the fast based upon those reasons. That which enters the body through the al-jihaz al-bawli, through the jihaz al-bawli, through the urinary passage for the male. And then there's number one, there are different types of things that enter. The ureteroscopy, in Arabic you call it minzar al-jihaz al-bawli, minzar al-jihaz al-bawli, which is the scope that goes through the urinary tract of the male. In English we call it the ureteroscopy. It's a or the ureteroscope is the process, and the ureteroscope is the device. So this is a procedure used to diagnose and treat conditions in the urinary tract, most commonly to remove kidney stones or urethral stones. It involves passing a small lighted telescope, ureteroscope, through the urethra and bladder into the ureter. Then there's something called Mandhūmah al Mufattirāt. This is called a cystoscope. What is this? A cystoscopy is a procedure where a doctor uses a thin camera-equipped tube called a cystoscope to examine the lining of the bladder and the urethra. It is used to diagnose or treat urinary tract infections, blood in urine, tumors, stones, or enlarged prostates with flexible scopes. So these are different types of scopes. Then there's something called a urinary catheter. In Arabic, we call it al-qastratul bawliya. A urinary catheter is a flexible tube inserted into the bladder to drain urine into a collection bag. It's used for urinary retention, incontinence, or post-surgery. Then there's something called Rasāʼil Readings, bladder lavage or bladder irrigation, CBI, continuous bladder irrigation. It's a flushing of the bladder with sterile solution, typically used after a surgery to prevent, remove, or manage blood clots and maintain catheter patency. To perform the bladder irrigation, a urinary catheter must be inserted through the external urethral opening in both males and females. The fluids used for irrigation are then introduced through the catheter and then withdrawn. So all of those things we'll discuss together. So this year, the classical fuqaha, how do we make takyif of this? The classical fuqaha discuss this mas'ala as إِذَا أَدْخَلَ إِحْلِيلَهُ مَائِعًا أَوْ دُهْنًا. What if a person inserts into his ihlil, into his urethra, a liquid substance or an oil? A liquid substance or an oil. So the classical fuqaha, based on the knowledge of anatomy available to them at the time, were divided on this issue. Some of them stated it does not break the fast, and that's the Hanafis, Malikis, and Hanbalis, majority of the scholars. And the evidences that they used, that anything that enters the urethra or the urinary tract doesn't break the fast, they said, number one, there is no manfad, there's no passage between the urethra, the bladder, and the jawf. So it doesn't reach the jawf. Number two, another argument that they use is, they say that, this is what they say, they say urine, when it comes out, it sprays out from the abdominal area to the bladder. And whatever sprays out cannot go back in. So basically what they're saying is, so this is an issue of discussion on anatomy. So how urine exits from the bladder? They say urine exits out of the stomach into the bladder, into the urethra. However, it cannot go back inside. So basically it operates like a one-way, like a flap, a one-way flap. Things can come out of it, but things cannot go through it again, cannot return through it. So they say anything that then enters the urethra is not going to reach the abdomen because it's like a one-way flap. This is what the Hanafis argue. Something can come through it, spray through it, but something cannot return through it. So they say, لا يعتبر منفذا, it is not considered a manfad, مفتوح to the jawf. So that's the arguments. Those are the arguments that they use. The Shafi'i madhab and Imam Abu Yusuf from the Hanafi madhab, they say anything that enters the ihlil, that enters through the urethra, through the urinary tract, breaks the fast. They say there is a passage, there is a manfad, which we said medically it's proven, scientifically today it's proven there's not. They say another argument that they use is, so they say there's a passage between the urethra, the bladder, and the jawf. So you can see the arguments are diametrically opposite. So the one say there's no passage, the other group says there is a passage. And that obviously will then determine the understanding of a modern day mas'ala. The second argument that the Shafis use and Imam Abu Yusuf is that the ihlil itself, the urethra and the bladder is considered a jawf, and anything that enters over there breaks the fast. They say, number 3, that anything that enters the jawf through choice is like eating and drinking. Number 4, they say that the breaking of the fast happens through something that leaves the urethra. They say normally fast is broken through something that leaves the urethra, the urinary tract. An example of that is sperm. When sperm comes out, your fast is broken. So similarly, what enters it should also break the fast, because they say it's like the mouth. What leaves the mouth breaks the fast, vomiting, and what enters the mouth breaks the fast. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. So based upon this difference of opinion among the classical fuqaha, the majority of the scholars will say the Mandhūmah al Bawli, the urethroscope, the Mandhūmah al Mufattirāt, the cystoscope, the Qastrat al Bawliya, the urinary catheter, the bladder irrigation, all of these procedures and things will not, and these instruments that enter through the ihleel will not break the fast. According to the Shafi madhab, it does break the fast, and that is proven by the author, by the Nadhim in the poem. Just an issue on the issue of the urinary catheter. According to the Shafi madhab, we state that it breaks the fast, right? It breaks the fast the day you put it in and the day you take it out. So if the person has it in for 5 days, only the day when you put it in, the fast is broken, and the day when it's removed, the fast is broken. For the interim period that the person has it on, it doesn't break the fast. It doesn't break the fast. Because they say that moment you put it in, that is considered eating. Something has entered into the jawf. And the moment you remove it, that is considered like istiqa, vomiting. Something has left the body. So on those 2 occasions, the fast will be broken. But if you're walking around with it for the 3 days in between, the fast is not broken. The fast is not broken. And the classical scholars, Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he actually discussed this. He says, لو ابتلع خيطا, if someone swallows a piece of thread, في ليلة من رمضان, during the nights of Ramadan, فأصبح صائما, and the next morning he wakes up and he's fasting. وبعض الخيط, and some of the thread is hanging outside of his mouth, and some of it is inside. In this case, he says, if it's like this, his salah will be invalid, because there's something that is connected to najis. Something is connected, it's outside and inside, it's connected to najis, but his fast will be valid. Why is he saying his fast will be valid? That is the scenario whilst it is in the body. And that's why the scholars of the Shafi madhab will say, the urinary catheter, your fast is only broken on the day you put it in and the day you take it out, not whilst you have it in. So because they say the day you put it in, it's like you ate, and the day you take it out, it's like you vomited. So in those 2 days, your fast will be broken. You need to make qada for those 2 days. However, for the duration that you're walking with it, your fast will not be broken. And that mas'ala that Imam Nawawi rahimahullah mentions in Majmū is an interesting issue, because that's how the scholars make takhrij and takyif of the mas'ala of urinary catheters. Imam Nawawi rahimahullah never knew about a urinary catheter, but we use that mas'ala to discuss the urinary catheter, and Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Okay? So we mentioned the evidences of the Shafi'i school, and Imam Abu Yusuf rahimahullah, he agrees with the Shafi'i school. And obviously, that those evidences are brought into question. The fact that there's a passage between the urethra, the bladder, and the jawf. Many scholars say today it's medically proven that there is not. Right? Also, the qiyas that the Shafi madhab makes, they say anything that leaves the urethra breaks the fast, such as sperm, and thus anything that then enters it should also be breaking the fast. Like anything that enters the mouth breaks the fast, anything that leaves the mouth, such as vomiting, breaks the fast. But they say that is qiyas ma al-fariq. That is qiyas ma al-fariq. Because what goes through the mouth goes into the jawf. Whereas that which goes into the urethra, in the urinary tract, that's the whole issue. We don't know if it reaches the jawf or not. So those scholars don't agree with the Shafi position. This section, alhamdulillah, has taken us 2 weeks to finish. Alhamdulillah, we are done. The last discussion is ma yadkhul an tariq sarj, that which enters the body through the rectum. And what we'll discuss over here is rectal suppositories, tahamil, al-hukn al-sharjiyya, which is enemas. And then there are scopes and fingers that are inserted into the rectum for medical purposes, and scopes and so forth and so on. What's a rectal suppository? A rectal suppository is a small, solid, bullet-shaped medication that dissolves inside the rectum to treat constipation or to deliver localized medication. An enema also has the same purpose, but it's a liquid solution that's injected into the colon to flush out stool. So the suppository is the solid and the enema is the liquid, right? So now the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, he goes to that mas'ala, inshallah. So the fuqaha, the classical fuqaha, when they discussed with regards to that which enters the sharj, the rectum, whether the fast is valid or not valid, they also divided the mas'ala into that which is solid and that which is liquid. That which is solid and that which is in a liquid form. The enemas that we know today, a liquid solution that goes into the rectum, these things existed among the classical fuqaha. And which was generally used for, for relief. When you needed relief, and then they would use an enema. So the classical scholars said, and this comes back to the mas'ala of the ulama of the past used to discuss, idkhalul jamid fi dubar, inserting a solid thing inside the rectum, or idkhalul ma'i', inserting a liquid into the rectum. So the majority of the scholars, that's the 4 madhabs, they stated anything that enters into the rectum will break the fast. Anything that enters into the rectum will break the fast. That includes all of the stuff that I've spoken about, the tahamil, the rectal suppositories, the enemas, scopes, and fingers that are inserted into the rectum for medical purposes, all of these things. And what are some of the evidences? The narration of Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anhu, al-fitr mimma dakhal wa laysa mimma kharaj. It's something that enters into the jawf. That's number 1. Number 2, they say you are inserting something into the jawf out of choice, and this is like eating and drinking. Number 3, they say ma yadkhul an tariq ad-dubur yasil ila al-am'a. They say that which you insert into the rectum reaches the intestines, and the body is then nourished through this. So it's like eating and drinking. And they argue, they say, hunaka ittisal, there's a connection. They say the anus is connected to the rectum. Wal mustaqim, the rectum, muttasil bil qawlan, is connected to the colon, which is the large intestines. Wamtisasul ghada, and nutrition is absorbed an tariq al-am'a ad-daqiqa. It is absorbed through the small intestines. وقد يكون عن طريق الأمعاء الغليظة. It's also absorbed through the large intestines. So they say these liquids and enemas, right? When it's taken in by the body, it goes through the small intestines, but it also is absorbed by the large intestines. And these things contain salts and different things that offers nutrition to the body, and thus will break the fast. Also, they say, they make qiyas al-manfadh غير المعتاد al-manfadh al-mu'tad fi al-wasil ila al-jawf. They say we make qiyas of an unnatural passage upon a natural passage. So like something goes down and it reaches the jawf. Similarly, we make qiyas of the rectum on a natural passage. And thus anything that enters through it will break the fast. So this is the view of the majority of the scholars. And there are obviously more evidences as well. They say, they make qiyas upon when you use snuff, something through the nose. They say this breaks the fast because it reaches the dimagh, the brain. Now remember, the brain, according to many scholars, is considered, it is a jawf, and thus anything that reaches there breaks the fast. So they say similarly, when you use the enema and it reaches the jawf, it breaks the fast. Qiyasan ala tilka al-mas'ala. So this first mas'ala is regarding, so we said the fuqaha, they divided that which enters the rectum either as a solid or as a liquid. The mas'ala that we're discussing now is that which enters the rectum as a liquid. So we said majority of the scholars, the four madhabs, state it will break the fast. Any liquid that enters into the rectum will break the fast for the reasons that I've mentioned. There's an opposing view, a few Maliki scholars, some among them some Shafi'i scholars, and even Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah from the Hanbali madhab stated any liquid that enters into the rectum does not break the fast. They say, number one, because the enema does not reach the abdominal area, and it doesn't reach that part of the body that breaks down the food. Number two, they say the enema, these liquids were there in the time of the revelation, they were there in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Had it been a nullifier fasting, the Prophet would have mentioned it. And number three, they say what is prohibited is eating and drinking. What is prohibited is eating and drinking. And that which enters into the rectum is not considered eating and drinking. It doesn't provide something to the body. Rather, it takes out of the body. لا تغذي بل تستفرغ ما في البدن. It doesn't, because when you're using that enema, something comes out of the body. You're not adding to the body. And the fuqaha would discuss examples such as, what if someone smells something and his tummy started running? Or what if someone was frightened and something came out? They would discuss these type of examples. All right? So based upon that difference of opinion, contemporary scholars will obviously differ. Contemporary scholars will obviously differ. The next issue is something solid entering through the rectum. Idkhalul jamid. And here we will discuss suppositories, because that's something solid, scopes, digital rectal examinations where they place a finger into the rectum. So when it comes to the issue of idkhalul jamid fi dubar, entering something solid such as a stone, a piece of wood, fingers, there are three views among the classical scholars. The Hanafis state it will break the fast with conditions. Those conditions are that whatever is entered into the rectum should disappear, it cannot be seen anymore. And number two, it should be accompanied by something like a gel. The second opinion is the Maliki school. They state anything that is solid and is entered into the rectum will not break the fast unrestrictedly. And the third view is the view of the Shafis and the Hanbalis. They state anything that enters into the rectum and is solid will break the fast without conditions, mutlaqan. And so that will include the different types of scopes, suppositories, rectal examinations, such as the Mandhūmah al the sigmoidoscopy, which is a procedure in which the rectum and the lower third of the colon are examined for signs of disease such as cancer, inflammation, etc., etc. So it's a tube that they place with a camera that they place into the rectum. So these type of masail, the scholars will discuss under this ikhtilaf. So based upon the above classical discussion, contemporary scholars will say the following. It breaks the fast. That's contemporary Shafi'is. Shaykh Wahba Zuhaili, and this is the view of the author of the Nadham. The late Mufti of the Azhar, Shaykh Hassan Makhloof, they say these things will break the fast because number one, it reaches through a manfadh maftuh and it reaches the jawf. Number two, they say enemas and suppositories, whether it is in liquid form or in solid form, they reach the rectum, and from there they pass to the large intestines, and the large intestine is part of the digestive system. It's part of the digestive system, which is part of the jawf, and it obviously it provides nutrition to the body. They say the large intestine has the ability to absorb, as science has determined. The second opinion among the contemporary scholars is that it doesn't break the fast. So these things, whether it's liquid form, whether it is something solid, it doesn't break the fast. And they say the reason for this is the prohibition is directed at eating and drinking. And number two, this is not eating and drinking. And number two, with the condition that it reaches the abdomen, and it is medically proven that there's no connection between it and the abdomen and the abdominal area. And the third opinion, and this is the opinion that Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah ta'ala held, they say the only thing, if it's a scope that goes up, or a rectal examination where they put their fingers into the rectum, this does not break the fast. However, if it's an enema and the enema offers nutrition to the body, then it breaks the fast. So they make a tafsil بين المسائل وبين المسألتين. And their arguments are that an enema that's placed into the rectum and it doesn't provide nutrition, there's no reason for it to break your fast. However, if it does provide nutrition, then it takes the place of food and drinks. And Allah Azza wa Jal, it takes the place of eating and drinking. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Jazakumullah khairan, brothers, for your time. I make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal that this was of benefit to you. Shukran jazeelan. If there are any questions, feel free to ask. If there are no questions, inshallah. Barakallah feekum. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.